for joining us today. We're going to wait a few more minutes to allow everyone who wants to attend and not miss anything. So thank you for attending. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining How to Influence Guest Behavior from Booking to Pre-Arrival. A few housekeeping items before we get started. The webinar will be recorded and distributed to everyone who registered about 24 hours to 48 hours after the webinar is completed. Also, you can ask questions at any time by entering your question into the chat box, and we will do our best to answer all the questions at the end of the webinar. So getting started, I'd like to introduce today's panelists. First, we have Shane Gerlach. Shane's a Senior Director of Property Solutions at Sojern. Next, we have Garth Obermeyer. He's a Director of E-Commerce and Direct Distribution Solutions at Sabre. And last but not least, Valen Perini, VP of Strategic Relationships at Nor1. And with that, hand it over to Shane to get started.
Thank you, Gerard, and thank you to Valen and Garth for spending some time with us today, and all of you who are joining us live, and also a shout out to anybody who's going to have this recording shortly. We are very excited to spend some time with you today, and we have an action-packed agenda, so we're going to jump right in and kind of start off on the path to purchase, the guest path to purchase, and essentially how does a hotelier today convert data into true intent, or essentially monetize that data to add to the bottom line. Well, I think the simplest way to look at this is look at the right message to the right format, or in the right format to the right traveler at just the right time. Well, that's neat in theory, but how does that really work? Well, at Sojern, we try to connect and segment the data that we have access to. We build profiles from our data sources and our data partners to decipher where, when, and why people are planning to travel. We then customize audiences to activate this data and find you in-market travelers using the Sojern Traveler platform that drives the overall campaign performance. And then once that's done, we really leverage the machine learning, or the science, I guess, behind the curtain with algorithms and optimizing the campaigns across all channels to uncover exactly where travelers are and how they're engaged. And then last but not least, and this is most important to most of the hoteliers that we speak with, is how do we create that loyalty or repeat guest base by maintaining relationships with past customers in order to drive future stays by staying top of mind. I think it's probably easiest for many of you on the phone today to think about this story, this this context in form of a story. And so I'd like to introduce everyone to Diego. Diego is a 32-year-old soccer coach from New York City who is currently looking at planning an amusement park adventure for his family of 4. He's doing almost this entire process via his mobile phone, and he's also trying to coordinate this around his kids' holiday schedule. So this just shows you a glimpse of kind of a profile of one of the unique users, how they travel, why they're traveling, when they're planning on traveling. If we go to the next slide, this is where it becomes, in my opinion, very telling. Diego essentially is going to have 451 different touch points over a 5-month period. Now, 5 months, that takes Diego essentially from a very much a dreaming or I'm thinking about doing this, not overly committed to the point where he actually starts to book the transactions, the travel, the accommodations, but 451 touch points in a 5-month period. I think it's safe to say that this slide really is resounding in terms of we are in the information age. You know, the reality of it is every guest that we're vying for has an abundance of data and abundance of stimulation literally at their fingertips at any moment in time. I think in order to appreciate where we're at today in the online advertising or the advertising world as a whole, it's important that we roll back the hands of time to get context and perspective on where we've come from in advertising and where we're going. So, quite simply, advertising back then, let's say pre-internet, if you will, advertisers simply tried to do a best guess, and they tried to think about billboards, magazines, news articles, where they thought their clientele were most likely to engage or read, and they would buy ad space there. Well, with the advent of the internet, it got a little bit better, but the reality of it was it now went from guessing on magazines and news articles to internet websites. So where did we think our guests were going to go via the internet? And we were going to buy ad spaces on those sites, hoping that that's where they would go. We would essentially influence their behavior to book that transaction. Well, flash ahead to today. Advertising now, as we said, is targeting the traveler, not the travel site. So I want you to think about this in terms of a very organic format. We just displayed here a couple samples of where your advertisements are most likely to show up. And the reason I say organic is because if you think about a traveler's path to purchase or anybody on the phone today, how you live your life, we spend most of our time today online, be it via a mobile device or on a desktop. Most of our time is spent online, so it's very organic. We're already there, be it social media, browsing different websites. So this is your opportunity to influence guests real time on sites that they were going to be on anyway. Like we did with the advertising, I think it's also important to take a look back on how travel planning occurred back then. And you know, quite frankly, I laugh at this photo a little bit because I was at my father's farm this past weekend, and I'm pretty certain the same texture and weave that gentleman is wearing was on my father's sofa. Just goes to show you that how far we've come, not only with fashion and things like that, but also advertising. The reality of it is that travel planning back then, if my father or mother wanted to do a family vacation for our family of 5, they simply called directly into the hotel that we were looking to visit with, or they called directly into the airline that we were going to use to travel, and away we went. It's just not that way today. So how is travel planning today? Well, just a few short years ago, it's amazing how fast time flies, but in 2013, Expedia released a stat that said that travelers visit on average 38 sites before booking a vacation. And I can't speak for everybody, but I know that time is a very, very precious commodity. And so you think 38 websites before booking one vacation. We'll flash ahead a mere 3 years. To 2016, travelers went from 38 websites to 140 sites in a 45-day path to purchase. That's almost a 300% growth in just 3 years. Again, this is going to come into play later on as we speak, but talking about buying for the time and the attention of your guests and the bombardment that they face every day, be it on mobile or be it on desktop, there is a plethora of stimulus and engagement going on for every guest that you're vying for. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. So as a hotelier today, a simple question is, how do I reach the right customer at the right time with the right message? It seems like a fairly innocent question. It seems like a fairly obvious question, but I know for most of the hoteliers that myself and our team has a chance to interact with on a regular basis, you're responsible for so many other things other than the marketing and the advertising and the influence of your property. It's very easy to get lost, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed with this one simple question. So we'll try to make it really, really easy for you to understand. First and foremost, over the last few years, we realized that the hoteliers that we speak to face very common challenges. For all intents and purposes, they fall into three simple buckets. As we've already discussed, this is a very, very complex and, quite frankly, a super noisy space to be in. Travelers use more devices today and visit more websites than ever before. It's very hard for any hotelier to think, well, gosh, where are they going to be? How do I get in front of them? How do I make sure that the money I'm investing is getting me the right return? Speaking of the money that you're investing, budgets. At the end of the day, online travel agencies and big brands spend billions and billions of dollars. For most of the properties that we speak with, they don't have billions and billions of dollars of budgets. They've probably got to manage their purse strings a little bit more closely, and that puts all the more pressure and onus on getting that return and monetizing those dollars back to the bottom line. And last, and certainly not least, are the relationships. You know, hotels have a tougher time today creating direct relationships, building those loyalty base and those repeat customers than ever before with all of the dynamics that go on in the industry, but yet most of the properties that we speak to would say this is in their top 2 or 3 objectives or initiatives for any given year. Well, what are 3 simple ways that your property can operate and act like the big names? First and foremost, and probably the simplest, is you've got to have more travelers visit your website. At the end of the day, if you do not have the demand generation and if you do not have the brand awareness for your property, it doesn't matter about anything else. It dovetails nicely into 2, that you could have the simplest and most easy to understand booking process, but if you don't have the demand, that matters not. So it's critically important that when you get the demand generation and you have people hitting your website, do you make the process overtly simple and easy for them to understand? Because you'll find out later from Garth that your attention or their attention is a very limited window for you, and you're going to have to work really quickly to make sure that you keep them on your website. And last but not least is be ready for mobile. Gone are the days where you could kind of be a late adopter. The business is such today that you're kind of, as a hotel, you're being forced that you've got to not only have desktop operations that are simple and easy to understand for your guests, but you've got to have a very strong mobile presence. One of the most common questions that we get asked is, where are travelers going to see our hotel ads? Well, if travelers are looking to come into your market and potentially visit your hotel, they're going to see that in a myriad of different ways. So programmatic display advertising, Facebook and Instagram via social, as well as search engine marketing via Google and Bing. These are all, like I said earlier, very organic by nature. This is where people are living and spending most of their days, not only while they're at work, but also during their leisure time when they're at home or when they're in transit from work to their children's events. They're on their mobile devices. This would stand true for desktop and or mobile. We believe that there is incredible strength in the idea of prospecting and retargeting. And one of the most common questions, or I would even say objections that we hear on a regular basis is, Shane, we believe that if they've hit our website, they're most likely going to visit and come back and book with us direct anyway. Why do we need retargeting? Well, my simple challenge, and the challenge that most of my sales folks ask our clients is, how do you know? You know, if you go back just a few slides and when we kicked off, let's be honest. I don't know that I would be willing to bet the farm on that simple analogy of if they've visited your website once, then they're likely going to come back, when I know that just with the story of Diego, there was 451 touch points. Just in 2016, before booking a vacation, any guest or traveler is going to hit upwards of 140 different websites. What you're essentially saying is that my one website I believe is more prevalent than any of those others. And although I can appreciate the logic and the zeal for any individual's website, I think it's very hard statistically to double down on that notion. And so the ideology here is very simple. We leverage both prospecting and retargeting, and we think that most of the properties that have performed really, really well with Sojern, they've done the same. Well, what is prospecting? We want you to establish your brand consideration with new prospects very early in the purchase funnel. So this is daydreaming. This is when they're maybe sitting in Omaha, Nebraska, or a winter state come this winter, and they're really like, I do not like this weather. I wonder how much it would cost me to go to Arizona or some more tropical climate. That's the discovery stage. Eventually, they're going to slip down into the more planning and the tactical stage. At that point in time, you're going to see a little bit later from Garth that on average, first-time site conversion rates are anywhere from only 2 to 5%. That means that 95 to 98% of the first-time visitors that hit your site, they're going to abandon before completing their stay. That's why we think that there's tremendous value in retargeting and going back after those people and reminding them in any fashion, be it display or social or search engine marketing, remind them that you've yet to complete that conversion, you should come back to the property direct. How do travelers get to your hotel's website? Well, we just talked about the concept of the mix of prospecting and retargeting and how valuable that is in light of all of the different potential touch points and websites and things that any guest or traveler could entertain in their booking process. But make this a little bit more simple for you. Prospecting is simply those people who have yet to be at your property and have yet to book. So they're looking for a hotel and they book a flight into your city or book a rental car in your city. We are going to prospect that traveler by showing ads to introduce that traveler to your property. I think the operative word that I would have any one of you think about now is the word influence. At the end of the day, with all of these different stimulation and all of these different stigma that are hitting them, the operative word here is what are you doing to influence their buying habits at the most operative time? As we talked about, retargeting is they've either been at your property in the past or they've hit your website, and much like many of the statistics tell us, they've gotten distracted or they've left and they went to a different website and they've yet to create that conversion. Well, long story short, if a traveler views or clicks your ad within a 7-day period of booking directly with your property, that attribution would be a viewer or click-based conversion. And I want you to, that's fairly industry kind of centric terminology. I think a simpler way for you to look at this is just simply view it as cause and effect. The reality of it is a common sense argument would be the closer the cause is to the effect, the greater the probability the cause drove the effect. So in this situation, that traveler was influenced by an advertisement. They either clicked on it or they viewed the ad and it prompted them to open up a search browser, or they went directly to that website and they converted direct within 7 days of one another. So here's the $1 million question. Now that they've been to your website, how do you get them to convert? I'm excited to introduce you all back to Garth Obermeyer. He's going to pick it up from here and explain to you how you create sticky websites and create those coveted conversions. Garth?
Great. Thank you so much, Shane. So as Shane was mentioning, if you look across all industries globally, about 97% of people will visit or shop a site without buying anything. T-News put out a study as well that said hotel direct websites should be about 4.5% conversion rate, which means, again, about 96% people will visit and not purchase anything. So it's critically important that we take as much advantage of that shopper as we can and try to increase our conversion rates. And you only have about 2 minutes. That's the average duration of a hotel site visit. But what's more important is the fact that they form an opinion about your website from that visit within 16 seconds. So if they have a negative opinion about that website, they're probably not going to stay there for the full 2 minutes. And so why do people, form a negative opinion, or why aren't they converting? When we look at building solutions, we try to solve, the market problems, things that are pervasive and affect all hoteliers. And the number one thing we hear from all hoteliers is, how do I compete more effectively against the OTAs, or how do I get more bookings direct and shift them from those third-party channels? And so the items that kind of fall into this area are, number one, a lack of retail focus and conversion optimization. And so what I mean by that is, if you go to almost any hotel direct website today and you do a search, you're going to get back products and prices. If you go to booking.com and do the same search, yeah, you get products and prices along with a myriad of other stuff on the page, which you might think looks cluttered and busy and is just way too much. But they are very focused. Every week you could go and check and see something different. They might be A/B testing. So they keep trying things out. So while it may look busy to us, it works and it converts. Because the guest who is shopping around and looking around is typically a leisure traveler. Those are the types of travelers that purchase online. They are price sensitive and they're looking for the best deal, the best location, all the different consideration factors. And if you can't convince them that they found that product, then they're going to keep looking. And so that's really the retail focus there. Next is failure to leverage existing knowledge about the traveler. It could be just as simple as, hey, welcome back, either using cookies if you're allowed to, or if they've logged in. And if you could take it a step further and start personalizing that experience, even changing the sort order so that the product that you think is best fit for them is to the top. And then if we work with companies like Sojern and bring in third-party data that knows what they were searching for outside of the booking engine, we can again use that data to personalize the experience. The next one is poor user experience, unable to streamline travel planning. What we really mean by this, and as Shane kind of hinted, mobile is where we now see the most amount of shops coming in. The majority of booking is still done via desktop, but they start shopping on their mobile phone. And if that experience is bad, they're not going to make it to your website. And there's still tons of booking engines or websites out there that aren't responsive or don't work well with mobile. And again, you're gonna miss out on that conversion. And lastly, really having the analytics and insights to make better decisions. So you need more than just your average booking funnel and your conversion rate. You need to really break down those steps and have a shopping funnel. You need to be able to look at what's the conversion by product, king room versus queen room, or this rate versus that rate. And then the top two criteria that travelers use when picking a website, number one is actually ease of use, and number two is price or offer. So again, it's critically important to have a highly usable, intuitive website and a great user experience. And so that's really the focus of our new booking engine. We want to provide guests confidence, confidence that they've found the right product, they don't need to look elsewhere, and create an urgency to book now. And so that's really our focus. And whether it's through adding in urgency triggers or focusing on mobile first design or bringing in Google's enhanced e-commerce analytics, it's never really done those designs. So we've changed our product selection page probably 4 times since we've launched, and I imagine we'll change it more. It's not that we're not right, it's just that you can always do better, and that's really what conversion optimization is always about. And actually, so when we launched the new product, you can see kind of in this lower right-hand corner, this is the product results. And we had a combined room and rate together. So it was kind of a one-click selection, which reduced clicks, which typically increases conversion. This didn't fail usability. It did fine. But once we got into production, we saw that our new booking engine wasn't performing as well as our old one. And if you have 10 rate types and 10 room types, that means you have 100 different product cards. So this works well for those hotels who might have a very simple 3 rooms, 3 rates type. So you only have about 9 products to look at. And we do have some customers using that, but the vast majority have a lot more than that. If we can go on. So we got the team together, and within 3 months, we relaunched the design of the booking engine, kind of changing it. Number one, we added in a hero image at the top of our product page, which is inviting and hopefully gets that guest excited either about the hotel if it looks beautiful or the destination. And it also creates that, brand experience from going from brand.com into the booking engine and make it feel like I'm in the same place versus sometimes when you go from brand.com into a booking engine, it's kind of jolting. And we changed the product card back to sort of the two-step selection process, which was travelers were more used to and seemed to understand that better. We also brought back the old progress indicator, which again, you think that that's kind of old school. We don't really need that. But travelers have been so trained over the past 10, 15 years in the process of how to book travel, which hasn't changed much, that it's actually really hard to go outside of that process. So it's best to kind of stick to what's been working. And so you can see as we started our pilot over on the left, our legacy conversion rate higher than our new booking engine. And then we had 3 different releases where we rolled out the new design. And then you could see where finally we were winning. And this was just A/B testing for a specific group of pilots. So as we went along, we thought that it could even be better. We continually do usability testing. And whenever a participant pauses or takes time before completing an action that was suggested, there's a problem. And so on the left, you see your traditional product card where you see a room and you click on show me the rates, and then you can select those rates. Users, for some reason, would think that Deluxe King Room was its own product. And then the rate below was a product. Even there's no select for there. So that was what was causing the pause. So now we've moved to a combined product card again, but in a different layout. And if we continue on the next slide, we can see again that after that launch, the trend of conversion changed. So this is what I'm kind of talking about, that it's never done. You got to keep making changes. Now, some might not be quite as drastic as that one. They could be much smaller. Such as this one. So here we took a number of different options on what to put on the button. So the control group, or what was in production at the time, was the standard room, and the button to select that product was book now. So then we looked at, well, what if it was check availability? What if it was search rooms, or book my room, or search rates, or check rates? And we tested that, and for this particular hotel, check rates was the winner. I mean, it could vary by region or your particular customer segment, but for this one, check rates had the best conversion rate. And we've also rolled out a new feature which provides sort of an alternate way to merchandise your product. So as you saw before, that product card, which you can kind of see that on the right screen, that's the expanded view. But if you look back on the left, you can see the category that's been set up. So this works great for, say, Outrigger in Hawaii, who likes to sell their rooms kind of based on the view. That's very important for travelers visiting an island. And so you have your ocean view rooms, then you could click in there and see what's applicable. And so the other important thing is it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. We have to offer different ways for our customers to be able to merchandise their products to best meet their needs for their particular hotel type and region. Other ways to not really improve conversion, but we also focus on, well, how do we increase ADR? So upsell is a great option that you could enable. And this isn't an upgrade per se. This is just re-merchandising the products that have been displayed to you. So again, if I had a King Room City View for $150, and also on that page, I saw Ocean View for $200, but I chose the $150. I might get an option to be upsold for, hey, only $50 more per night. You could have the Ocean View. Again, it's not a promotion. It's just re-merchandising what's already been shown. And then the next thing we're really looking at too is how to merchandise the add-ons. It's critically important to obviously just get the initial booking for the hotel room, which is really the majority of the value of that booking. So by having an add-on step within the booking process, well, that's another click to book, and could reduce your conversion rates. And the majority of guests do not buy add-ons during the original booking process. And so why not take those out, or have the option to take those out and put them post-booking, not just via the confirmation page, but the confirmation email, and also when the guests were to come back to your website and view their reservation, being able to add that. But to be able to do this, we have to make sure that the process to add that is as seamless as possible. They can't click add and then go through a whole nother step of filling out a form, adding in their credit card and all that stuff. It needs to be as close as possible to just, hey, just click this button, done. And so that's one of the things we're actually working on right now. And working with some of our other partners or utilizing our own sort of CRS email, we really think, even though while this is great and we can take this functionality and move it to really post-booking and the pre-arrival email. And so I think Valen will touch a little bit on that, but that's really the best step, 3-4 days prior to arrival, showing the guest the options that they have to book and add to their stay, to their experience, is really the best way to get that conversion. And even in usability tests, we actually have our users who will say something like, oh, it's great that I see you have add-ons here, but I don't know what I'm going to be doing, a month or two from now when I'm going to be taking that trip. I'd rather decide that when I'm closer to the trip. Just sort of validating the fact to take that out of the initial booking process. And so what do we tell our hoteliers in terms of recommended best practices in general? Because this is a white label solution, and most of you probably have some sort of white label solution that's configurable. And you need to make sure that you have it configured appropriately for not only your brand, but for your guests and your users to really optimize that conversion. So number one, A/B test. Even just changing the words on a button can have a great effect. Make sure that you have a mobile-friendly website and mobile-friendly booking engine. And typically, do you go app? Do you go website or responsive? We recommend actually responsive web design, because once you go create an app, if there's any enhancements that you want to create, typically you're going to have to go custom develop that, versus if you're using a SaaS application that's just responsive out of the box, as those updates come, you can take advantage of them immediately. On your brand.com website, make sure you have a booking widget. What I mean by that, being able to select a location, dates, and hit search. Sometimes I find booking engines that just say book now, and they just land you in the booking engine. And then some of those websites that have a date picker, I just saw this yesterday on one, I pick November 1st as my check-in date, and when I go to pick, some day after that, and I get the calendar, it comes back today's date, 10/23. So that's just a small usability issue, but really frustrates users because it doesn't make any sense. Images are extremely important. Try to have at least 6 high-quality images of those rooms or destination. Utilize member-only rates or locked rates. This really not only provides discounts, which we don't always want to do, of course, but it's giving a reason for a member to give you the information and sign up for a program or create a profile. So you don't need necessarily a third-party CRM system or third-party loyalty system to do this. You could just use the profiles that are in the CRS. But this allows you to provide a discount to those people who've given you their information, which then you can market to them later. As we all know, email marketing comes with a pretty high ROI. So this discount will pay for itself. Using icons and bolded list for room descriptions or rate descriptions, and making sure they're meaningful and differentiated. Sometimes I see paragraphs of text. No one reads all that. They just want something they can scan quickly and easily. And then if you have like 6 or 7 rates, make sure the guest can understand what the difference between those rates are. And make sure that your flexible rate has things like book now, pay later, free cancellation. That's the message you should be using. Anytime you can throw the word in free, it actually increases conversion rate. Simplify the guest details page. So often I'll also see on the guest checkout page, maybe asking for the home address and making it optional. Anything that's optional should be removed. That's just another form field that they have to tab through or click through or decide they don't want to book now because of this laborious process to enter all their information. So really, if you could just ask for name, email address, and phone number, that would really be the best. And then minimizing the number of steps to click or book. It really depends on your application, but for ours, it's flexible. You can, have an add-on step. You can not have an add-on step. Review page. I've selected everything, and instead of book now, I get that final review step so I can look everything over, make sure it's all good before I hit book. From a usability perspective, from a user perspective, that's great. It gives them that extra chance to really confirm that they want to do that. From a revenue generation perspective, it's bad. It gives that person a chance not to click book, and we see the conversion rates lower when you actually have the review page on. And then keep it simple. Just less is more. Text-heavy websites and things like that, it doesn't work well because no one's reading that information. So with that, I'd like to kick it off to Valen, who can talk more about sort of the post-booking process and how you can generate more revenue post-booking. Thank you.
Thank you, Garth. Hi, everyone. I am Valen Perini, and I'm pleased to be here today with Shane and with Garth and with you to talk about influencing guest behavior in the pre-arrival phase. I am going to talk about merchandising. Specifically, I'm going to answer this question. When a guest has committed to stay at your property, how can you make sure they have a great experience while driving additional revenue? So let's start first by defining merchandising so we all know what we're talking about. The American Marketing Association defines it as the activity of promoting the sale of goods. For hotels, that means more than upselling. Upselling has historically referred to selling the guest a better room type, for example, from a standard king to a deluxe king. Merchandising is broader than that. In our industry, it includes offering not just room type upgrades, but also room attributes that have value, like a high floor or a view or a balcony. It also includes non-room products and services like amenities or the add-ons that Garth described, food and beverage specials, spa services, or the guest favorite, early check-in and late checkout. And pre-arrival is the perfect time to merchandise to guests. Why? Next slide, please, Anne-Marie. First, because guests are used to it. Hotel guests, like all consumers, see merchandising offers from all sorts of companies every day that are based on that guest's buying behavior, and they respond to those offers by opening their wallets. Second, just because the booking is completed doesn't mean the guest has stopped purchasing travel. Far from it. The pre-arrival phase between booking and check-in is the time when guests book rental cars, they make restaurant reservations, and they buy tickets to attend shows and other events. So why wouldn't hotels do the same? Make offers to help the guest have the best experience possible based on buying behavior to increase the chances of conversion. Hotels know why the guest is traveling based on the data in the reservation record, because remember, we're post-booking at this point, so we know why the guest is coming to the property. Data like room type, market segment, check-in and check-out day of week. So hotels have the opportunity to present targeted and relevant offers based on that data in this time period when guests are buying other travel products. So it is the right time to merchandise your hotel products and services to them. Next slide, please, Anne-Marie. So now that we've talked about why guests respond to merchandising in this time period, let's talk about demand for travel merchandising specifically. I'm going to share some data from our own customer set here at Nor1. We've been in business since 2006 and have 4,000 plus hotels in our portfolio. So we have millions of data points of guest interaction with merchandising offers. A standard metric of digital demand is the click-through rate, or also called the CTR, which specifically refers to how often users click on a call to action for an offer or some other call on a web page or into email. For both email and booking engine, web page booking engine, our data show a 13% CTR on offers we place, either on the IBE or on an email. Across all e-commerce, inside and outside travel, the average CTR is anywhere from less than 1% to 6% for products and services. So a 13% CTR by guest for hotel products and services is way higher than average, showing higher demand by guests for travel hotel merchandising offers. Then, of those 13% that click through, 16% of them will commit to one or more offer presented to them by one of our hotel customers. In 2018, our hotels using our platform will present well above $400 million in products and services. So the value proposition is clear. There's plenty of supply, but there's also plenty of demand. And I do want to make the point that merchandising is not just limited to upscale properties. Even a smaller or an economy property can offer early check-in and late checkout at the very least. So next slide, please. Let's dig a little deeper and talk about emails specifically, because currently an email is the most common way that hotels communicate with guests post-booking prior to arrival. That may change in the future, but right now it's all about the emails. So how does demand for travel products compare with cross-industry data specific to emails? Taking a look at the average non-travel email that has a call to action in it over on the left side of the slide, the open rate, that is how often the email was actually opened, is 25%, and the CTR is about 4%. Compare that to a travel industry specific email. Think about a confirmation email or a pre-arrival or a pre-check-in email. The open rate is also around 25% and the click-through is 3%. When we look at the emails that present a single hotel merchandising call to action, which is what Nor1 sends out on behalf of its hotels, the numbers are much higher, as you can see in the bars on the right side of this graph. The open rate for those emails that we send out on behalf of our customers is 64%, and the click-through is 51%. That's a huge difference. And I know that you're dying to understand why that difference is so. So if we could go to the next slide. On the emails that we send out and in best practice emails out there across the industry, a single call to action is the absolute best practice because the user can only do one thing on that email. They can't get distracted by other messages to read or other buttons to click. They can only do what you want them to do. On screen are a few great examples of very focused merchandising emails going left to right. Some are industry, some are not. So on the left side is one from Headspace, which is a meditation app. I'm on their email list, so occasionally I get emails from them. Always single message in the email with a single button to click on, and a great message actually on the call to action on the button itself. As you can see, it says, "Get some Headspace." Next to the next one to Headspace is from a local company. I live in New England. There's a company that sells oysters, and so I'm a customer of theirs. I get emails from them. They have a great call to action on their button, "Buy oysters." There's only one thing I can do, and I know exactly what I'm going to get when I click on that button. A few hotel-specific emails. The next one over is from Preferred Hotels and Resorts. I'm a member of I Prefer, which is their loyalty program. And occasionally I get emails from them as well, very targeted emails. And I really liked the text on their call to action button. On this one, it says "Take a swing" because it is a golf specific email. So I could click on that button and I would be taken to special offers at Preferred Hotels and Resorts here in the States for people who like to golf. And then finally, on the far right of this is one of the emails that we send out on behalf of our customer Lowe's Hotels. So we follow this best practice, as you can see in this email. There is one thing on this email for that guest to do. It says, "Show my custom upgrades." The guest knows exactly what's going to happen next. So these messages clearly communicate to the guests the value proposition of the offer they're getting ready to see and give them only one way to get to the offer, which leads to very high click-through on the offer on the email itself. So if you would go to the next slide, Anne-Marie. So what's the flip side of this? So the more options on a piece of digital real estate, the lower the conversion for any single call to action. So too much choice equals too little revenue. And my guess is that not many of the many calls to action on these emails generate much revenue. To be clear, I'm not counting links like unsubscribe or privacy policy or terms of use, just those buttons or links that are actually a call to action to a product or service. So on the left side is from a local catering company. That email has 6 listings, 6 calls to action on it. The Metropolitan Opera email has 12, which is 11 too many. And IHG's confirmation email, which any guest who books at any IHG hotels globally would get this email, has 8 separate merchandising calls to action on it. There are so many places for the user's eyeballs to go on these emails that the chance of the user doing what you want them to do is very, very low, meaning that the chance of generating revenue is also very low. Next email, please. Oh, sorry. Next slide, please. So now that you know how to get a guest to click on the call to action to present merchandising offers, what should you present so you can turn the guest interest into actual revenue? So this is more Nor1 specific data based on our guest requests through our platform in 2018 across our entire hotel portfolio during the pre-arrival stage. So as you can see, configured room upsells, that is from the standard king to the deluxe king, have been the most offered upsell email, and the data shows that. Also, it's the most opportunity a hotel has to be able to sell. There's also the highest margin on room upgrades, so we see a lot of that through our platform. But we're seeing the growth of what we call attributes on our platform as well. That is not configured room types, but rooms with a certain attribute in them, like a view or a high floor or a balcony. And these are a big driver of revenue for our customers, and we see that piece of the pie getting bigger. And finally, we see growing interest in non-room offers like spa or parking or food and beverage, depending on whatever is available at the facility. Regarding early check-in and late checkout, which are the #1 and #2 non-room offers and requests that we see from guests along our platform, if you take away one thing from this webinar today, it should be this: don't give them away. Guests will pay for them. Next slide, please. So now that you know how to get attention for your offers and what offers guests will buy, how can you get started? So first, identify what in your property has value to guests, because if it has value to your guests, it can be monetized. Ask your front desk agents what guests like at check-in. Do they like view? Do they ask for views? Do they ask for bigger rooms? Do they ask for fireplaces? Do they ask for bathtubs? We have a property using our system that upsells the one room that they have that has a larger bathroom with a jetted tub. They upsell that through our platform and people pay for it. Ask the F&B outlets and retail outlets on site what guests ask for there and what their needs are. Is the spa slow enough on Monday to offer a special? Does the bar need more traffic between 3 and 5 o'clock? Do you have a new outlet on your property that you need to increase foot traffic through? So there are lots of opportunities for not just upselling of rooms, but also of the other facilities, the other revenue generating facilities and outlets that are in your property. And look at your online reviews, again, to help you figure out what you could monetize. Do guests like those rooms that have the extra windows? Do they like those quiet rooms at the back? All these sources can help you figure out how to effectively merchandise products and services at your property. Next slide, please. All right, let's wrap this up. I call this the virtuous merchandising circle. As you understand what products and services your hotel can offer to guests, then the next step is to present those offers in a clear and compelling way that's easy to understand and easy for the guest to act on, which will allow the guest to be able to create the best stay that possible at your property. That great experience the guest has at your property will generate guest loyalty and return business. And over time, you'll gain insight into what offers generate interest from guests and which offers convert the best, which will drive revenue for your hotel. Because of that, your property can refine its merchandising capabilities and keep providing excellent guest service, which puts you in this virtual cycle of making money. That's it. That's all I have for me. I hope this was helpful, and thanks for your attention.
Thanks so much, Valen, as well as Garth and Shane. This has been great. We do have a time for a few questions. The first one we have is for you, Val. We do some upselling already. How can we expand into broader merchandising?
That is an excellent question. I would say data is the key. So I touched on this sort of in my last slide, but how well you understand how each of these touch points, specifically, I'll stick to email, generates revenue and increases guest satisfaction. All guests are not alike when it comes to responding to merchandising offers. So to reach all guests, you need to have enough intelligence in your merchandising program to be able to put the right offer in front of the right guest. Because not all businessmen, for example, are going to respond to the same offer that a family traveling over the weekend would respond to. So put some intelligence in it and find as much data as you can about how it works now and what's working for you, and apply that to expand your program.
Excellent. Shane, the next question is for you. I have a limited monthly budget. What's the best channel for my property?
Yeah, it's a very common response or a question that we hear. You know, depending on what that actual limit is, you could do a myriad of different things. At the end of the day, we have different offerings that would cover multiple channels, but I think, you know, a lot of the properties we speak to, if you're down in the $500 to $1,000 range, I think for reach, you probably want to get into the targeted display or the programmatic to get the biggest reach for your property would be my basic answer.
Okay. Valen, another one for you. You haven't talked about how to determine what offers to present to which guests. How should we approach that?
So for similar to the last one, understanding what offer and serving that offer up to the guest is something that requires some work on the property's part, because you want to make sure that you get the right offer in front of the right guest, because you want that offer to convert. So understanding what guests have wanted in the past, but also understand what guests have bought in the past and at what price point they've bought at the past will allow you to figure out what converts the best, because obviously whatever converts the best, you want to put it back out there over and over, because you want to generate more revenue from that. So really thinking through what offers are available to what type of guest based on time of day, time of week, time of month, seasonality is the way that you would approach that.
Excellent. Val, one more for you. Regarding Nor1, what do you think would be the best time to send an offer before the travel date?
That's an excellent question. It depends on the guest, but we find that we see highest conversion on the confirmation email. Actually, on the confirmation webpage is the highest conversion for room type upsells. But we also see pretty high conversion on the pre-arrival email. So to Garth's point earlier, where he had some anecdotal feedback from hotels and guests saying that they don't think about once they make the booking, it's done. They move on to other things in their lives. But as the time of travel approaches, we find that hotel guests start thinking and are much more receptive to upsell offers and merchandising offers at that point, because they're thinking about their hotel stay. They're thinking about how long it's going to take them to get to the airport. They're thinking about, oh, did I rent that car or not? So they're already in the trip planning, not even trip planning, trip taking mode. And so they're very receptive to merchandising offers just before arrival.
Excellent. If there are no more questions, we're going to wrap this up. Again, as a reminder, the recording will be distributed within the next 24 to 48 hours to the email that registered. We want to first thank our presenters for presenting today, and all of you for attending. We look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Thanks, everyone.